Today we're going to look at the importance of saying nothing. In life, the power of our voice and the effects of our words is huge, isn't it? And so our nature is to want to speak up, want to say something with the people we love, with the people we work with. However, in this modern age where we're able to use our voice in many different ways globally through the power of social media, we can see that saying something isn't always the right thing to do, and therefore we can see that there's going to be an importance of saying nothing at times in our life as we walk the path of life, and the people we are around and speak to. We're going to need to recognize that there's an importance of saying nothing at times. And so this episode is all about that. What is the importance of saying nothing? When are those times? How can we better pick up when those times are so that we can harness that skill better and use it to help us to live life more? So, without further ado, let's explain, first of all, off the back, what do I mean by saying nothing? What I don't mean is, I don't mean literally no words. What I mean by saying nothing is when you sense an urge at times to say something to somebody, whether it's to call something out, whether it's to give some advice, whether it's to help people see something that maybe they aren't currently seeing, and then recognizing that in spite of the urge, saying nothing is actually the right thing to do. We're only ever going to understand that and do that, withhold what we might feel we want to say in any given moment, if we understand the importance of doing that. So let's look at the importance of saying nothing. The importance of saying nothing can be looked at by looking at the downsides of saying something. You will know in your life when somebody has said things to you that you're like, I just did not need to hear that right now. That was the last thing I needed right now. And you've also probably had times where you've said something, you're like, oh God, I shouldn't have said that. Oh man, that was not the time to say it. Why did I say that? And it's because saying something when not timed right, and at times when you're not invited to even say it in the first place, can cause destruction. It can cause hurt and pain. Now, the tricky scenario with this is that you've seen from past podcasts that you can't control the other people's perceptions of you and what you say and what you do. And I've encouraged massively, and always will, people to be authentic, to speak their truth, in spite of what other people may think. Not ignoring it, but just in spite of the consequences of what they might think. And yet, what I'm saying here is that speaking your truth might be to say nothing, which we will come to. And the reason is because saying nothing has as much importance, is as important as saying something. But if you don't know that importance, you're less likely to not say anything. You're more likely, therefore, to just rant your mouth and say stuff. And we see that play out, right? People just giving opinions left, right, and centre, not really thinking about it, just ranting their emotions. And it can be really destructive and noisy and confusing and stop us from actually being able to feel, learn, and grow through life. So the importance of saying nothing is that it literally does that. It gives you an opportunity to really listen. What do you feel about what's going on here? What do you feel needs to be said here? Rather than just feeling an urge and ranting and just saying something and, risking all the destruction that can come with that. It gives you a checkpoint. It allows you to just be present. And as I say, if it's with a loved one in particular, really listen to what they're trying to say, rather than having the urge of, I need to help you, or I need to solve this problem for you, or I need to call that stuff out in you. Yeah, just listen. So a lot of the time, people do need to be called out. You do need to say something. Okay, that is really important. And far too often, people suppress what they need to say in fear of it might hurting people, or in fear of being judged. And it's tricky. Right? But if it's your truth and it needs to be said, you've got to say it. But your truth can be to say nothing. Like, actually, do you know what? This is not the right time. This is not the right place. And actually, I'm recognizing that my emotions here are what's making me want to rant here because I'm being triggered by this. So I need to just pause, reflect before going back to this. Think about this. The importance of saying nothing is enhanced when you think about a time where maybe you've been struggling and you've gone to somebody and all you've really needed is to just vent and be listened to and be heard, and indeed at times be held. Physically held, maybe, but hit a space, your voice, to be held without judgment. You're not looking for that loved one or whoever it is to solve all your problems. You might even know what the solution to your problem is, but you just need to just get that out and just have someone listen to you. And yeah, okay, they can check you, but and give you feedback. That's okay, but I just need a chance to just say this, to explain how I feel. I know I'm being irrational, but I just need to get this out. And that can be life-changing when you do. You're no longer storing it inside. You've just been with someone who's brought love to the table and been willing to listen to you so that you can feel. You feel so you can learn, so you can grow. That whole process is enabled by the fact that someone didn't bring judgment or urgency to say something and solve and give you all of their internal dialogue. Not projectile vomit at you, but verbal diarrhea at you. God, they're not the right phrases, but just ranting to try and say something that didn't even need to be said. And parents are usually pretty good at doing this with at least young kids. The best way of parenting is just to be there for your children, and just when they're crying and ranting and being irrational and unreasonable, it's just holding space for them to do it and bringing love to the table and then guiding them with that love. And sometimes that guidance is just giving them a cuddle. So adults are no different. We can be as irrational as babies and children at times. But sometimes we just need people to just not say anything, to just let us speak. And the benefit to them, if you do that, and flip this round, think about a time where someone's come to you and has been doing that. And, if you've really just held space for them, they breathe, they calm, they soothe. Just your presence helps that. You don't need words in those moments, necessarily. But again, think about it when that's not happened, right? When someone has just judged you in the moment with what you're saying and trying to solve all your problems. And have you done X, Y, and Z? Have you thought about this and this? Or just get on with it. Or just, and all these things come out and it's like, oh my God. And love isn't coming to the table back at you. Presence isn't coming back to the table at you. It's judgment. And you felt how unhelpful that can be. And likewise, think about when you've done that to somebody else, where they've come to you, they're just trying to convey how they're feeling or a problem or a challenge, and then you've just brought judgment to the table. Stop being so pathetic, like whatever it might be, man up, woman up, whatever it is. And you've brought your judgment, and you've seen, oh God, it's created conflict. Oh, that didn't really go well. And again, conflict can come when you bring love to the table as well, and judgment can come, and that's why you got to speak your truth in spite of that. But I'm talking about the moments where God, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, why did I say it that way? Or yeah. Now, I'll give you an example. I had a friend who was really low, who came round one day. I was trying to be there for him, had been there for him, but wanted to be around and wanted him to have some company because I could sense he was really struggling. Came round, we had a great time, but we got onto the topic, obviously, of his problems, and I was holding space and listening, but I was getting triggered and had been getting triggered by a pattern of behaviour that I'd seen in him over the years of being too humble and taking responsibility for everything and never calling people out for anything. And it's never anyone else's fault, it's always his fault. And this humble trait it's almost put on a pedestal. And being humble is great, right? But being too humble is unbelievably destructive. And I was seeing this, and his friend, I wanted to call it out. I was like, what are you doing? Like, stop doing this. But I wasn't, whilst I feel like maybe there might have been truth in what I was trying to say, I brought frustration to the table. I brought judgment to the table. And I feel like I pushed him away in that moment. And because he felt judged. And in that moment, as low as he was, that is the last thing he needed. And I was trying to help, but I should have maybe just checked, taken a breath, and gone, I'm being triggered here with the frustration. Like, just take a breath here, breathe. What do I really feel like needs to be said here? Because I might have still said the same thing, but I would have done it with a different energy. Okay, and that is really important. So yeah, sometimes your words are not what's needed. Your presence is. Your judgment is almost certainly, definitely not needed. And that is why we need to check in. We need to harness this skill of knowing when it's time to say nothing. Because if not, we rant. And we are ranting an energy into the world that leads to destruction. And whilst destruction is part of life and has value, is it the wisest way of doing it? Is it really wise to just go on and just constantly judge people and constantly rant your judgments at them? Or is it wiser to notice those judgments within you, breathe through them, and find love within you to then bring that to the table? That is the choice. Yeah, we have that choice. We have that ability within us. And if you look around social media, you'll see it. There's so much people just ranting their judgments. And it's not particularly healthy. So if you want a wiser approach, let's look at some skills that will help you to find a more centered place again when you sense an urge to say something that maybe the time is not right to do. Maybe the time is right to just be there for them and listen to them and bring love to the table for them. And that might involve words, but if it does, those words come with an energy, a loving energy rather than a judgmental one. And that will enhance your relationships no end. It will enhance relationships with yourself no end, as well as the ones you love and the people around you. Will you still risk offending people? Of course you will. Can't control that, but can you at least know, all right, well, at least I did bring love to the table there. Yeah, that is what I spoke from. What does the world need more of? That type of approach? What does your world need more of? That type of approach? Or more judgment? More ranting? And I get it. I do it myself. Like, we're never going to get this perfect. We're never going to be perfect at this. We're always going to get triggered by things. We're always going to find our judgments popping up. But can we become better at saying nothing sometimes and knowing when is appropriate to say something? So to know, like, this is the question now, isn't it? It's like, how do you know when it's time to say something and when it's time to say nothing? I'll give you some skills in a second, but the simplest answer to that is, do you feel love when you speak? And I'm not talking about everything's so positive, everything's all... I'm not talking about puppy love here. I'm talking about real, true, like our true nature, which is love. And that's maybe a story for another day and may sound too cringeworthy at the moment because maybe you haven't explored that. But that is our true nature. So do you sense that within you when you're speaking to somebody? Or do you feel anger, frustration, irritation, judgment, right? And it can work the other way. It can be overly positive. It can be like infatuation. You know, are you speaking? I'm super excited. Oh, I'm so happy. You know, like that type of energy. Like, are you feeling that super kind of like judgmental state of those hyper positive or hyper negative emotions? Or do you feel love? Do you feel present? Yeah. And those things, as I say, when you feel that, you still may be saying to someone things that are tough love. Love is not a pussycat, right? You can still speak with truth and be deliberate in what you're saying. But it's a different energy. And so what I'm saying to you is that if you've sensed that love within, you're probably going to know when to say things and when to not a lot better. Now, an example, I have treated patients throughout my career of all ages and many walks of life. I have had to know that skill professionally, because there are lots of times where patients will say things or do things and I'm sitting there going, what are you doing? But this is creating your problems. But if I bring that to the table, they're going to feel judged and they're probably not going to come back. And I don't worry about that from a financial point of view. Obviously, it would impact that, but that's not why I worry about it. It's because I wouldn't be able to then help them, which is the reason I do what I do, ultimately. So that's not going to be an ideal scenario. So you have to know when it's time to let somebody know a truth of something. So a lot of times I'll see patients where straight off from the back, from taking their history, knowing their condition, knowing their problem, I can see the fundamental problem may not be physical. Right? Let's say they come in with migraines, headaches, back pain, dizziness, whatever it is. And I can see that, look, this is a physical expression of the fact that you're carrying trauma, or the fact that you are constantly stressed and overworking, and whatever it might be. If I go straight in there, that might not be a good idea. That person might get very defensive, think, what is this? I'm coming from a headache and you're talking to me about, there needs to be a bit of a process there where I'm like, okay, I can see that, but I need to help this person, and they're not looking for some emotional support right now. They're looking to get out of pain, right? So let's try and get them out of that first. Now, if I brought judgment to the table, or I need them to know that because that's the thing they need to know in order to heal, and didn't bring love to the table, then I wouldn't be able to judge the timing of that as well. And sometimes it is telling them straight away. And this actually happened to me last week. A new patient came in and I was like, all these things are going on. World of pain, you've got leg pain, you've got migraines, all these things. But these are physical manifestations of the trauma that you've been through that I sense you're still carrying. And she broke down in tears because she knew that was the truth. But I was speaking to her with love. I wasn't speaking to her with judgment. Oh, you haven't dealt with all your traumas like 20 years ago. What's up? What do you expect? That's not the energy I bring. Nor do I feel that. But it's just a little insight to the difference, right? Is that you have to be able to time these things right if you want to help people in life. So bring love to the table is how you do that. And if you're speaking from a place, and this includes anything, like if I find myself here, for example, and I find that I'm talking to you and I've got anger and I'm frustrated, stop. That is not what the world needs more of. That is not what I'm trying to share here. That when you're in those states, you're less objective, which means you're not speaking truth, you're speaking judgment. And that's why bringing love to the table really does make a difference. It's because you can be objective with that person and sense what they need better. So some tips to be able to bring love to the table. If this is something beforehand, so let's say you've got a conversation with a loved one coming up or a colleague or whatever it might be, and you're not quite sure how to play it, you're not really sure whether to say something or not say something, then one tip you could do is look at the benefits of saying something and the benefits of saying nothing. Another way of asking that question is, what are the downsides to saying something and what are the downsides to saying nothing? And then you've got some data to look at, and you can be objective. If your emotions aren't letting you be objective, but this is, because you're just getting honest, what are the benefits of saying something, what are the drawbacks, and what are the benefits of saying nothing, and what are the drawbacks, then you can just see, right, which is best aligned with the outcome you're looking for. Which is the most aligned thing, saying something or saying nothing. So that can be helpful. Another technique you can do is you can literally close your eyes, put your hands on your heart, just breathe in and out of that area, and ask the question, what am I to do with this scenario? Am I to say something? Or am I to say nothing here? And wait till you hear an answer. And that is so important. I think I've said this in another one of the episodes about this type of technique. If you try and answer it with your head, you're going to come up with all the possibilities. But if you just breathe, keep your awareness in that heart region, and wait for an answer, you'll eventually gain a sense of which is the best route. And it might actually be a different route. It might be a combination, right? Okay, say this, but you'll hear it. And that's a skill certainly I use at times. You know, if I've got something coming up, I really feel like I need to say X, Y, and Z, but I'm a bit worried, then I'll do that technique and I'll wait and I'll see what my own internal guide is telling me. You know, what is my truth really? And you'll hear a voice that is not judging, not angry, not frustrated. Like, this will be a loving voice, really. That will be a very centered voice. So see if that one works for you. Another one, let's say obviously that you're just in the moment. Like, and somebody is talking to you and you feel an urge to say something. I don't know what it might be, but it's something that you're like, God, why are they keep making this behavior? Why are they doing this? And you can sense they're a bit vulnerable. And you're like, oh, that brings tough love. Just in the moment, you're not going to have a chance to really think about that. But what you can do is just put your awareness in that heart center. It's a very grounding thing to do. Anything that is grounding is balancing. Anything that is balancing makes you more objective, makes you less emotional and more centered. And when you're in a centered place, the most balanced emotion is love, so you're better able to access more of that state. Even if it's by 10% more, you're nudging the dial in the right direction, which means you can speak better, more intuitively, and more effectively. And at times, therefore, say nothing when you sense that is the thing to do. And another really basic one is just, do you feel invited to say something? This has been a big one for me. Is anyone inviting me to say something? Like, has anyone asked for my opinion? Is this person actually asking for my help? Or what do I think about this? And if not, well, they're not looking for it. Maybe it's actually not the right time because there's no invitation to. Now, you can find an invitation within. So it might not be that somebody says, so let's say I'm working with someone and someone's like saying something and they're not asking me a specific question. What do you think about this, Ben? But if I feel an invitation to explore that topic with them or to bring those insights to the table or those questions to the table, if I sense an invite, not an urge, but like an invite, like, yeah, I feel like I want to do that, and it feels, pretty centered, then that's a good indication that it's a time to say something. And if I don't feel that, it's a good indication that it's a time to say nothing. So again, it's a complicated one, this, knowing when to say nothing and when to say something. But in conclusion, there is value in saying nothing. And the main value is that you create a space for someone to just feel so that they can learn and so that they can grow. And saying nothing and not bringing your judgment in particular is really, really important. But you do need to speak up in this world. You do need to use your voice. You do need to speak your truth and not suppress it. Yeah? Saying nothing doesn't mean suppressing. It might be suppressing the judgment, but it doesn't mean suppressing your truth. So stay aligned with your truth. Use some of those techniques I've talked about just to help you to do that, or things that we've talked about in other podcasts to help you to do that, to stay centered. Bring love to the table. That is your compass. If you bring love to the table, to the people you're speaking with, even if you don't like them, even if you do judge parts of their lifestyle, we're all human, these things happen. But if you can just bring love, just let that sit in between, let that drive the ship, you'll know when to say something. And you'll get the benefits of that. And you'll know when not to say something, and you'll get the benefits of that. Both have a place. So I hope this helps you to kind of better understand the importance, basically, of saying nothing. And just check yourself and be like, hang on a minute, in this relationship, am I just ranting off my judgment and my opinions without actually recognising, is this what this person needs? And if it's judgment, like, I need to reflect on, why am I getting judged by that? Like, let's just change the energy for a second here. Let's change the frequency. Bring it back to love, our true nature. And that will be the most aligned steps to move forward. If you do that, you live life more. It's a no-brainer. You'll never get it perfect, so don't put the pressure on yourself to get this perfect. But I hope this has helped you to just fine-tune and explore the importance of saying no and where, moving forward, those times might be better.